No one inside the MotoGP paddock expected this. Not the team managers, not the analysts, not even the fans who normally can sense a storm long before it hits. But when whispers about Yamaha's next move began spreading across garage walls and late-night meetings, it felt like the beginning of a seismic shift. A moment that could tear open rivalries, collapse alliances, and rewrite careers that once felt unshakable. Because according to insiders, Yamaha wasn't just preparing for a fresh start. They were quietly working on the most explosive rider lineup the sport has seen since the Rossi-Lorenzo Golden Age. Francesco Bagnaia and Toprak Razgatlıoğlu, side by side in full factory Yamaha blue. The idea sounded almost unreal, too perfect, too chaotic, too destabilizing. Yet beneath the surface, a chain of events was unfolding. Political tension, technical frustration, fading loyalties, and a desperate need for rebirth, all pushing Yamaha toward one daring, history-defining decision. And what the paddock eventually discovered changed everything. Behind Yamaha's polished image was a frustration that had been simmering for years, a feeling that they were watching the MotoGP world accelerate while they stood still. Ducati was devouring victories with relentless efficiency. Aprilia reinvented itself into a futuristic powerhouse. KTM gained muscle, ambition, and an army of young talent. Yamaha, they were trapped between nostalgia and reality. The team that once dominated the sport with Rossi's charisma and Lorenzo's brutal precision was suddenly struggling to keep their only superstar satisfied, Fabio Quartararo. Inside the garage, mechanics whispered that Fabio wanted more than incremental upgrades. He wanted a weapon. He wanted a machine capable of fighting the Red Army up front. But updates arrived slowly, too slowly. And then rumors surfaced, rumors that Quartararo was considering a future far away from Iwata, rumors that Aprilia's project had caught his attention, rumors that Yamaha's biggest fear was becoming real. If Fabio left, Yamaha wouldn't just lose a rider, they would lose their identity. And that was the moment the executives in Japan made a decision. If they were going to rebuild, they wouldn't rebuild quietly. They would rebuild violently. Yet the magnitude of their plan was still a secret, and the first name on their list would shake the foundations of Ducati's empire. Francesco "Pecco" Bagnaia was never meant to be part of Yamaha's story. He was Ducati's chosen one, their champion, their masterpiece. 2 world titles, a riding style built on precision and cold logic, and a reputation as the calm executor of Ducati's technological superiority. But 2025 became the year everything shifted. What started as small cracks slowly grew into visible fractures. Unstable results, miscommunication with engineers, rising pressure from the next generation, riders like Fermin Aldeguer pushing with fearless aggression, and Alex Marquez performing far beyond expectations, making the internal hierarchy feel more crowded than ever. Some insiders claim that Pecco no longer felt like the center of Ducati's project. Others suggested that the pressure of defending his status was wearing him down. Nothing was confirmed, but the tension was impossible to ignore. Then came the first rumor. Yamaha had reached out. At first, it sounded absurd. Why would a 2-time champion even consider leaving the most dominant machine on the grid? But the truth was simpler. Pecco wanted purpose. He wanted to lead a project that revolved around him. He wanted to be the axis, not just another piece of the Ducati machinery. Yamaha offered exactly that, a clean slate, a new era, and the promise of becoming the face of their 2027 revolution. And just as the paddock was processing this impossible scenario, another rumor surfaced that made the situation even more chaotic. Because Yamaha didn't want just one superstar. They wanted a second, someone completely different, and his name was Toprak. For years, people said Toprak Razgatlıoğlu didn't brake like a normal rider. He didn't slide like one. He didn't think like one. He was a performer, a rule breaker, a rider who treated the limits of physics like a challenge instead of a warning.
In World SBK, he became a legend, the king of controlled chaos. And when the news broke that he would step into MotoGP in 2026 with a satellite project tied to Yamaha, the entire fan base erupted. Many believed he could become the sport's most explosive personality since Casey Stoner. Others warned that his aggressive instinct might struggle on prototype machinery. But one thing was undeniable. Toprak would bring something Yamaha desperately needed, a spark. Not just as a rider, but as a global figure. A social media phenomenon, a marketing powerhouse, a walking highlight reel. Inside Yamaha, technicians silently debated whether his braking style could be adapted to MotoGP electronics. Engineers wondered if he could tame the ultra-sensitive front end of the new 2027 engine philosophy. But management saw something else, a future star capable of reviving Yamaha's lost aura. And the moment Toprak signed for MotoGP 2026, a bold possibility opened. If he proved fast enough, the factory team would take him in 2027, which raised a terrifying question for the rest of the grid. What happens if Yamaha pairs Bagnaia's surgical precision with Toprak's wild genius? The paddock wasn't ready for the answer. Long before Yamaha considered Bagnaia or Toprak, there was only one man they planned to build around: Fabio Quartararo.
He was their prodigy, their champion, the rider who saved Yamaha from irrelevance after the Rossi era. But every season after 2021 dragged him deeper into frustration. A bike that refused to evolve fast enough, a development cycle that always fell 2 steps behind the competition, a growing sense that Yamaha wasn't matching his ambition. When whispers of Aprilia's interest reached the paddock, the situation changed overnight. Aprilia had become one of the most attractive projects on the grid, innovative, aggressive, and hungry. And Fabio, exhausted by stagnation, began to look beyond the blue garage. Nothing was confirmed publicly, but the signs were there. The body language, the comments, the tension. Yamaha couldn't afford to wait for his final decision. They had to prepare for the worst. And if Quartararo opened the exit door, someone else's door would close, because Yamaha only had 2 seats, and one of those seats suddenly felt dangerously unstable. Alex Rins arrived at Yamaha with high expectations, experience, race wins, and a smooth riding style that should have matched Yamaha's DNA. But the reality was brutal. Only 68 points, a position outside the top 18. A season filled with mechanical frustration, setup confusion, and fading confidence. Inside the garage, some mechanics wondered if the chemistry was simply not there. Others believed the bike's limitations masked Rins' true speed. But as the results worsened, one truth stood out. Yamaha could not rely on him to lead a 2027 rebuild. The problem? Rins was still under contract. Replacing him would be expensive. Keeping him would be risky. And with Pecco and Toprak entering the conversation, Rins suddenly looked like the piece that didn't fit the puzzle anymore. His future depended on whether he could turn things around in 2026. Because if he didn't, the door would swing wide open for a generational shakeup. A shakeup that might erase his place in the factory team entirely. The 2027 season wasn't just another year on the calendar. It was a reset button, a technical rebirth for the entire sport. Engine formulas were changing, aero rules were shifting, electronics would be recalibrated, and the whole competitive landscape would be reshuffled. Every team wanted to enter this new era with the strongest foundation possible. Every mistake would be amplified. Every weakness would be exposed. Yamaha understood this better than anyone. Their goal wasn't merely to survive 2027. It was to own it, which meant they needed riders who could adapt instantly, riders who could give meaningful feedback, riders who could push engineers in the right direction. Pecco offered intellect, discipline, and championship-level refinement. Toprak offered instinct, aggression, and a riding style perfectly suited for the lower downforce world that 2027 was expected to create. Together, they could form the most dangerous synergy Yamaha had fielded in more than a decade.
But the closer this possibility became, the more dangerous the political landscape turned. Because Yamaha wasn't the only team making moves. The moment the first rumors leaked, the MotoGP universe erupted. Social media timelines exploded. Twitter threads grew uncontrollably. TikTok edits of Pecco and Toprak in Yamaha Blue went viral overnight. Fan art appeared before the rumor was even fully confirmed. For Yamaha, this was a blessing and a curse. A blessing because the global reaction was massive, bigger than anything they had generated since the peak Rossi era. A curse because expectations skyrocketed instantly. Inside the paddock, journalists asked sharper questions. Analysts speculated live on broadcast. Former riders gave their opinions and their warnings. Some believed the duo would create the most balanced lineup in the sport. Others feared their personalities and styles could clash violently. But the biggest wave of chaos came from Italy and Turkey, two nations emotionally tied to the story. Italian media protected Bagnaia fiercely. Turkish fans defended Toprak with unmatched passion. And caught between two rising fan bases, Yamaha suddenly found itself under a spotlight hotter than anything they had prepared for. But the true twist wasn't coming from fans or media, it was coming from another team, one that had the power to derail Yamaha's entire plan.
Just when Yamaha thought they had a clear path forward, a new report emerged. VR46, the team built on Valentino Rossi's legacy, was considering switching to Aprilia machinery for 2027. If this happened, it would trigger a domino effect. Ducati's satellite structure would shrink, Aprilia's influence would skyrocket, and the market for top-tier seats would collapse into total chaos. Suddenly, Bagnaia's future became even more complicated. If VR46 abandoned Ducati, Pecco would lose his safest alternative option. KTM had no seats left. Aprilia was investing heavily in youth, and Ducati's lineup was tightening fast. This meant one thing: Yamaha might become the only place where Bagnaia could remain the centerpiece of a project. And as for Toprak, if he delivered a spectacular debut season in 2026, Yamaha would have every reason to pair him with Pecco for the Grand 2027 reset. Two contrasting worlds, two unpredictable personalities, one factory searching for resurrection. The idea felt outrageous, but outrage was exactly what Yamaha needed. Because in a sport built on milliseconds, sometimes the biggest risks don't happen on the track, but in the negotiation room. And behind closed doors, something else was happening. Something that could turn the entire situation upside down. If Yamaha succeeds, 2027 could become their rebirth. A season that marks the return of a giant, a new dynasty led by two of the most compelling riders of the modern era.
Pecco, methodical, sharp, mentally indestructible. Toprak, daring, instinctive, unpredictable. Together, they could form a combination capable of overthrowing Ducati's mechanical empire. But if Yamaha fails, the consequences could be catastrophic. Losing Pecco to another project, watching Toprak struggle to adapt, being stuck with contracts they can't reverse, destroying the delicate balance of politics inside the team. The stakes have never been higher, and as the 2027 season creeps closer, the paddock waits with breath held tight, wondering which version of Yamaha will emerge, the one that rises from the ashes or the one that collapses under the weight of its own ambition. One thing, however, is certain: whatever happens next will be remembered for decades, because Yamaha has already lit the fuse, and the explosion is coming.